Rub it gently, she instructed. The rancher gasped, then found the hidden pain. The morning sun had barely climbed above the horizon when the rancher stepped out onto the wide porch of his small but well-kept ranch. The smell of fresh hay mixed with the earthy scent of the pastures, and a soft breeze ruffled his hair. He was a man used to hard work, to long hours spent with horses and cattle, to the quiet rhythms of ranch life. His hands were rough from years of labor, yet strong enough to handle even the most stubborn animals. He prided himself on being self-reliant, on solving problems without needing anyone else's help. Yet, as he sipped his coffee, something tugged at his thoughts, a sense of unease that he couldn't shake. Earlier that morning, a call had come through that seemed unusual. It was from Mrs. Thompson, a woman he had known for years. She was well respected in the community, known for her quiet strength and kindness, but also for her independence. The rancher had always admired her from a distance, seeing how she managed her own small farm and cared for her family. Yet there was something in her voice on the phone that made him pause. It was gentle, but urgent. "I need your help," she had said. "It's something I can't manage alone. Please come." He hesitated. He wasn't a doctor, and he certainly didn't have experience with the kind of help she might need. But her tone was calm, patient, and sincere. It carried a weight he couldn't ignore. By the time he finished his coffee and saddled his truck, the sun had risen a little higher, casting golden light across the fields. He drove the familiar dirt roads, passing the green pastures and wooden fences, his mind turning over the possibilities of what awaited him. He had learned over the years that sometimes the simplest tasks required the most careful attention. He hoped that whatever this was, he could handle it. He thought about Mrs. Thompson, her quiet composure and steady gaze, and wondered how someone so strong could need help. The question lingered, unspoken, as he guided his truck over the small hill that separated his land from hers. When he arrived, he noticed something immediately. The garden, usually perfectly neat, looked a little disordered. Some flowers drooped, and the wind had tossed the laundry across the yard. It was subtle, but enough to suggest that something was wrong. He parked the truck and stepped out, feeling the familiar crunch of gravel beneath his boots. Mrs. Thompson came out to meet him, her expression calm, but there was a tension in her shoulders he had never seen before. "Thank you for coming," she said simply, her eyes meeting his with quiet insistence. "I didn't know who else to ask." He nodded, unsure of what to say. Of course. Of course. Tell me what's wrong." Charles asked somebody out of the car. His mind is bent over itself. The rancher noticed the careful way she moved, almost as if each step was measured to avoid discomfort. Inside, the house smelled faintly of herbs and baked bread. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting warm patterns on the wooden floor. She led him to a small sitting room with a worn but comfortable chair. "Sit down," she said, motioning to the chair across from her. "I'll explain." The rancher sat, leaning slightly forward. He watched her carefully. There was a calmness in her voice as she spoke, but he could sense the underlying struggle. She told him about a pain she had been living with for months, something that had grown slowly but relentlessly. It was not something she had sought treatment for before, not because she didn't care, but because she had learned to endure it silently. She had tried medications, exercises, and even visits to professionals, but nothing had worked. Now she hoped that someone she trusted could help her feel even a small measure of relief. "I've watched you work with horses for years," she said quietly. "You have strong hands and a careful touch. I think you might help me if you follow my instructions." The rancher's eyebrows rose slightly. He wasn't sure what she meant, but her voice carried a calm confidence. that encouraged him to trust her. "I'll do my best," he said simply, hoping it would be enough. She nodded, almost relieved. "It won't be easy," she said. "You have to be gentle. Listen carefully to what I say." For a moment, the rancher felt a twinge of nervousness. This was not like riding a horse or herding cattle. It required patience, careful attention, and sensitivity. But as he looked at her, he saw not weakness, but a quiet strength that demanded respect. He realized that helping her would not just be about physical skill, it would be about understanding and empathy. She gestured for him to stand beside the chair. "Rub it gently, just like this," she said, showing him a motion with her hand. "Slow, steady, not too hard. You'll know when it's right." He followed her instructions, moving his hands cautiously, guided by her directions. At first it felt unfamiliar, almost awkward. His muscles tensed as he tried to adjust to the delicate motions. But as he continued, he began to feel a subtle shift. There was a hidden pain beneath the surface, one that he could sense through her body. He gasped softly, not from fear, but from realization. This was more serious than he had imagined. For the first time, he saw the depth of what she had endured. Every day she had carried this pain silently, performing her chores, tending her home, and managing her responsibilities as if nothing was wrong. He felt a mix of admiration and concern. This woman, so composed and capable, had endured more than most could imagine. As he worked, he listened carefully to her instructions, adjusting his movements as she guided him. He noticed the small changes, the easing of a shoulder, the slight relaxation of her expression, the subtle shift in her breathing. It was like uncovering a secret world of discomfort and resilience, hidden beneath a calm exterior. He felt a sense of responsibility settle over him. This was not just about helping with pain. It was about honoring her strength and trust. Hours seemed to pass without notice. The rancher and Mrs. Ed Thompson worked together in quiet harmony, a partnership born of necessity and trust. He learned to read her cues, to anticipate her needs, and to move with precision and care. She, in turn, shared stories of her life, her struggles and victories, her quiet triumphs in managing her home and farm. He listened, fascinated by her resilience and wisdom, realizing that strength was not always loud or visible. It was often quiet and enduring. At one point, she paused and smiled faintly. "You're doing well," she said softly. "I didn't think anyone could understand what this feels like." The rancher nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment mixed with humility. He had not expected this, had not imagined that helping her would be such an intimate and revealing experience. Yet in the simplicity of the moment, there was a profound connection. They were two people, different in many ways, yet bound by a shared purpose, to face something difficult together. By the time the sun began to dip toward the horizon, the rancher realized that something had changed, not just for her, but for him. He had discovered a hidden world of pain, yes, but also a hidden strength within himself. The experience had taught him patience, empathy, and the quiet power of careful attention. It was a lesson he would carry long after he left her home. As he stood to leave, Mrs. Thompson thanked him once more, her voice gentle but sincere. "You've done more than help with the pain," she said. "You've shown me that someone can care, truly care, and understand. That means more than you know." He tipped his hat, feeling a rare warmth in his chest. "Take care of yourself," he said simply. "You're stronger than most people realize." He walked back to his truck, the evening breeze brushing against his face. The field stretched out before him, bathed in golden light, familiar yet changed in his eyes. He realized that strength was not just in muscle or skill. It was in compassion, in understanding, in the willingness to face what is hidden. And sometimes, helping someone else find relief also helps you discover something new within yourself. As he drove back to his ranch, the quiet hum of the truck blending with the soft sounds of the countryside, he reflected on the day. The ranch, the horses, the land, all were constants in his life. But today had reminded him that life also carried hidden layers, delicate and complex, waiting for someone patient enough to notice. And he knew that tomorrow and the days after, he would carry this lesson with him, forever changed by the trust of one remarkable woman and the hidden pain she had let him see. The morning after his first visit, the rancher found himself thinking about Mrs. Thompson more than he expected. Her calmness, her strength, and the quiet trust she had placed in him lingered in his mind. As he tended to his horses and checked the fences, he realized that today he would return to help her further. He wasn't sure what he would encounter, but he knew he had to be patient and attentive. By the time he reached her property, the sun was high in the sky, and the garden glowed with the warm light of late morning. Mrs. Thompson met him at the gate, her steps deliberate but lighter than the day before. There was a small, hopeful smile on her face, one that immediately made him feel that his presence mattered. "Thank you for coming again," she said. "I'm ready when you are." The rancher nodded, stepping forward with his usual calm confidence. "I'll do my best," he replied. "Just tell me what to do." Inside the house, the atmosphere felt different than yesterday. It was quiet, yet not tense. It carried the weight of a story untold, and the rancher sensed that today they would dig a little deeper. Mrs. Thompson guided him to the sitting room, where she carefully took a seat in her chair. He could see a hint of strain in her posture, a subtle stiffness that he hadn't noticed before. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting both determination and a touch of apprehension. "This time," she began, "I want you to focus on more than just the surface. There's something deeper that has been hidden for a long time. I've tried to ignore it, but it's become impossible. You have to go slowly and listen carefully." The rancher nodded, feeling a mix of curiosity and concern. He had sensed that her pain was more serious than she had initially admitted, but he hadn't realized just how much she had been carrying inside. He knew that today, patience and understanding would be as important as any physical skill. "Rub it gently," she instructed, placing her hand on his. "Not too hard. Let your hands follow the way I guide you." He moved his hands as she instructed, feeling the subtle tension in her muscles. It was different from yesterday. The discomfort was sharper, hidden beneath layers of endurance. He gasped softly, not from fear, but from recognition. The hidden pain she carried was deep, and it had shaped the way she moved, the way she lived. "I didn't want anyone to see this," she said quietly. "Not because I'm weak, but because it's mine. I thought I could handle it alone, but I can't anymore." The rancher listened, understanding the courage it took for her to speak those words. He realized that helping her was not just about easing the physical pain. It was about honoring her trust and showing respect for the struggles she had faced in silence. Hours passed as he followed her careful instructions, moving his hands gently, feeling for the areas that held the most tension. Each motion revealed another layer of discomfort, another story of endurance. "Ow." She guided him with patience, explaining the sensations and how to adjust his touch. Slowly, he began to understand the rhythm of her body, the hidden map of pain she had carried for months. "Here," she said, pointing to a spot near her shoulder. "Be careful, that's where it hurts the most." He pressed gently, feeling a deep tension that made him pause. He hadn't expected it to be so severe. Her muscles were tight, almost as if they had been bracing for something for years. The rancher felt a mix of concern and empathy. This wasn't just discomfort. It was the result of long-term strain, of facing life with determination despite constant pain. Slowly, just slowly, she whispered. Don't rush. Let it release naturally. He adjusted his touch, feeling the tension gradually give way. It was like unlocking a hidden burden, one that had been weighing her down silently. As he worked, he realized how much strength it took for her to go through each day with this invisible weight. His admiration for her grew with every passing moment. During breaks, they would sit quietly, sharing small conversations that revealed more about her life. She told him about her family, the work on her farm, and the challenges she had faced in managing everything alone. The rancher listened, learning not only about her struggles but also about her resilience and wisdom. Every story deepened his respect for her and strengthened the connection between them. "You've done more than I expected," she said softly during one pause. "I didn't think anyone could understand this, not just the pain, but what it feels like to live with it every day." The rancher shook his head slightly. "I'm just following your guidance," he replied. "But I see it now. I see how strong you really are." The rest of the day passed in a careful rhythm of work and conversation. He followed her instructions, adjusting his touch as she guided him, learning the subtle cues that indicated relief or discomfort. He discovered that helping someone in this way required more than skill. It required attention, empathy, and patience. And with each motion, he felt a growing sense of connection, a quiet understanding that went beyond words. By late afternoon, there was a noticeable change. The tension in her muscles had eased slightly, and her movements were less stiff. She smiled faintly, a small but significant sign of relief. The rancher felt a sense of accomplishment mixed with humility. He hadn't expected this journey to be so revealing, so intimate in its own quiet way. Yet, he realized that the experience was transforming both of them. "Thank you," she said quietly, "not just for helping with the pain, but for listening and for being patient. That means more than I can say." The rancher nodded, feeling warmth in his chest. "It's not just about helping," he said. "It's about understanding. I'm learning as much as you are." As he prepared to leave, he noticed the subtle ways in which her posture had changed. She moved more freely, though cautiously, and her expression carried a lightness that hadn't been there before. He realized that even small progress mattered. The hidden pain was not gone, but the process of facing it, of allowing someone to help, had brought a sense of relief and hope. Driving back to his ranch, the rancher reflected on the day. He thought about the quiet trust she had placed in him, the courage it took to reveal something so personal, and the patience required to guide him. He understood now that helping someone was not always about fixing a problem immediately. It was about presence, attention, and respect. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, he tended to his horses with a new sense of awareness. Life, he realized, carried hidden layers, and sometimes the most important work was unseen, quiet and delicate. Helping someone uncover a hidden pain was more than a task. It was an act of trust, of empathy, and of shared strength. He thought about Mrs. Thompson, about the way she had guided him, and about the courage it took to ask for help. He realized that her hidden pain had taught him something invaluable, that strength was not only in enduring hardship silently, but also in allowing others to help, to share the burden, and to show care. That night, as he sat by the fire at his ranch, he felt a quiet satisfaction. He had discovered a new dimension of life, one that required sensitivity and understanding. And he knew that tomorrow, when he returned to help her again, there would be more lessons to learn, more progress to make, and more trust to honor. He closed his eyes and smiled faintly, thinking of the journey ahead. The road to relief, he understood, was not a straight line. It was filled with patience, attention, and quiet effort. And he felt ready to face it, knowing that the connection he was building with Mrs. Thompson was as important as the relief they sought together. The hidden pain, he realized, was not just a physical challenge. It was a story of endurance, resilience, and trust. And being part of that story, even in a small way, had already changed him. The next morning, the rancher awoke to the familiar sounds of his ranch. The gentle lowing of cattle, the soft whinny of horses, and the distant rustle of leaves in the wind. His body ached from the work of the past days, but his mind was occupied with Mrs. Thompson. He thought about her courage, her patience, and the trust she had shown him. Today he would return, ready to continue the journey they had begun together. When he drove up the dirt road to her property, he noticed the garden once again. It looked more cared for than before, as if the small relief she had felt yesterday had given her renewed energy. Mrs. Thompson met him at the gate, her posture a little straighter, her movements a little freer. The subtle change made him feel that his efforts were having an impact, and it encouraged him to give his very best. "Good morning," she said, her voice calm but carrying a quiet warmth. "I think we're ready to try a little more today." He nodded, smiling gently. "I'm ready. Show me what to do." Inside the house, the sitting room seemed to hold a different energy. There was a quiet focus in the air, a sense that today would require not just patience, but deeper understanding. She took her usual seat, and he stood beside her, ready to follow her guidance. "Today," she began, "I want you to pay attention not only to the pain, but also to how I respond. Some areas need more care, some less. You have to notice the little signs, changes in my breathing, the tension in my muscles, even the smallest shifts in expression. That is how you will know what helps and what hurts." He listened carefully, his hands hovering, ready to move. He realized that helping her now was more complex than before. The pain was no longer a single point. It was a network, subtle and hidden in ways he had not fully understood. But he was determined to follow her guidance, to give his attention fully to the task. "Rub it gently," she reminded him, "and pause when you feel resistance. Let it guide you." As his hands followed her instructions, he could feel the tension gradually changing. Some areas released easily, others required careful adjustment. He noticed how small motions brought noticeable relief, while larger or faster movements caused discomfort. He learned to slow down, to listen with his hands as much as with his ears, and to respond with patience. "Here," she said softly, pointing to a spot near her lower back. "Be careful. This one is tricky." He adjusted his touch immediately, feeling the tension beneath the surface. It was a hidden knot of discomfort, one that had developed over months, perhaps years. He pressed gently, following her guidance, and felt it slowly loosen. He gasped softly, realizing the depth of the strain she had carried alone. The rancher had faced tough challenges before. Storms, broken fences, stubborn horses, but this was different. This required not strength, but sensitivity and attention. During breaks, they spoke quietly about everyday things, the weather, her farm, his ranch, and the small moments that made life meaningful. These conversations, simple as they were, gave both of them a sense of normalcy. It reminded him that even in the midst of pain and struggle, life continued, and connection could grow quietly in unexpected ways. "You're doing very well," she said at one point, her voice carrying a note of relief. "I didn't realize how much I was holding in. It's not just physical, it's everything. All the tension I've carried, it's finally starting to loosen." He nodded, his focus unwavering. "I can see it." "You're strong, and you're teaching me something too, that patience and attention can do more than force or speed ever could." Hours passed with steady work, punctuated by short breaks and quiet conversation. The rancher learned to notice the smallest signs, how her fingers would twitch, how her shoulders would slightly shift, how her breath would catch. Each indication allowed him to adjust his touch, to help her release a little more tension. He felt a growing sense of responsibility, not only to relieve her pain, but to honor her trust in allowing him to guide her through it. At one point, Mrs. Thompson shared a story from her past, about a time she had endured a long illness without anyone noticing. She spoke quietly, but with strength, explaining how she had learned to rely on herself. The rancher listened, feeling a deep respect for her resilience. It was clear that her courage had been built through years of facing hardship quietly, without complaint. "You've helped me more than you know," she said softly. "Not just with the pain, but with understanding, with care. That matters just as much." He shook his head slightly. "I'm just following your guidance. But I'm glad I can help. I'm learning a lot too." By late afternoon, there was a noticeable difference. The tension in her muscles had eased further, and her movements were freer. Even her voice carried a hint of lightness that hadn't been there before. The rancher realized that the slow, careful work they were doing was beginning to bring real change. It was not an immediate cure, but it was progress, a tangible sign that patience and attention could transform even hidden pain. As the sun began to set, painting the room in warm shades of gold and orange, they paused for a moment of quiet reflection. She leaned back slightly, a small smile on her face. "I didn't think anyone could help me understand my own body," she admitted. "But you've done that, and that matters more than the pain itself." He smiled gently, feeling a rare warmth in his chest. "It's a partnership," he said. "You guide me and I follow. Together, we make progress." Driving back to his ranch that evening, he thought about the day. He reflected on the trust she had shown, the courage it took to reveal something so personal, and the patience required to guide him. He realized that helping someone in this way was as much about emotional understanding as physical skill. Each moment of attention, each careful motion, was a form of connection, a quiet bond built on trust and respect. When he returned home, he tended to his horses with a renewed sense of purpose. The work was familiar, yet different now. He had discovered that strength was not always about physical skill or endurance. It was about empathy, patience, and understanding. Even the simplest acts, when done with care, could make a profound difference in someone's life. That night, as he sat by the fire in his ranch house, he thought about the journey he had shared with Mrs. Thompson so far. He realized that the work they were doing together was not just about relieving pain. It was about creating a connection, a shared understanding of patience, resilience, and trust. And he felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing that even small progress mattered, that even hidden pain could be acknowledged and eased through careful attention and compassion. He thought about tomorrow, about returning to continue their work. He knew it would require the same patience and focus, but he felt ready. The rancher understood now that progress was not measured by speed, but by care. By listening, observing, and responding, he could make a difference. And by doing so, he was learning something invaluable about life, about strength, and about trust. The rancher closed his eyes, feeling a calm sense of fulfillment. He had discovered a new kind of work, one that went beyond his ranch, beyond his skills with animals or fences. This was work of the heart, of patience, and of shared understanding, and it was work he was proud to do. The next morning, the rancher rose early as usual, but this time there was a sense of anticipation in the air. Today felt different. After the work of the past days, he had learned so much about Mrs. Thompson, her hidden pain, and her quiet strength. But he also sensed that today they might make a real breakthrough. The sun was just beginning to climb over the fields as he drove the familiar dirt road to her property. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of grass and earth. He noticed the garden first. Flowers swayed gently in the morning breeze, and the sunlight illuminated the subtle colors of petals and leaves. It was a scene of calm, yet he felt the tension of the days past lingering beneath the surface. Mrs. Thompson greeted him at the gate, her smile more confident than before. There was a lightness in her step, a quiet strength that had been hard-won through her patience and perseverance. "Good morning," she said softly. "I think today we can do a little more." He nodded, feeling a surge of determination. "I'm ready," he replied simply. "Let's take it slowly, step by step." Inside, the sitting room felt calm and focused. She took her usual seat, and he stood beside her, hands ready but careful. He knew that this final session would require not just skill, but patience, empathy, and trust. "Today," she said quietly, "I want to focus on releasing the tension that has stayed the longest, the hidden pain that I thought would never go away. You've helped me feel more in control, but now I need your hands to guide it completely." The rancher listened carefully, feeling the responsibility in her words. This was the moment that mattered. He had learned from her guidance how to read her subtle cues, how to notice the smallest changes in breathing, expression, and posture. Today he would put all of that into practice. "Rub it gently," she instructed once more. "Slow, steady, and pay attention to the signals my body gives. Let the pain guide you, not your strength." He followed her instructions, his hands moving with careful attention. The muscles that had once been tight and resistant slowly began to loosen. He felt the tension release in small increments, each one a victory. The hidden pain she had carried for months, perhaps years, began to diminish under the gentle rhythm of his hands. As he worked, he noticed how her body responded differently than before. There were small movements, subtle shifts that indicated relief. He adjusted his touch, guided by her reactions, and gradually the stiffness that had dominated her posture started to ease. "You're doing wonderfully," she said softly, her voice carrying a hint of relief. "I didn't think I'd feel this light again." The rancher smiled faintly, feeling warmth in his chest. "You've done most of the work yourself," he said. "I'm just following your guidance." Hours passed as they continued the careful process. There were moments of silence, moments of conversation, and moments where progress spoke for itself. He felt a sense of deep satisfaction in seeing the tangible results of their efforts. The hidden pain, once so dominant, was gradually releasing, and she was moving more freely, breathing more easily, and showing signs of comfort and relief. During a break, she shared a story about her childhood, a time when she had faced challenges and learned to carry burdens silently. The rancher listened, realizing that her hidden pain was not just physical but also connected to years of resilience and quiet strength. She had endured much without complaint, and now, through trust and careful guidance, she was finding relief. "I never thought someone could understand this so deeply," she said softly, her eyes reflecting gratitude. "You've shown me that patience, attention, and care can really make a difference." He nodded, feeling a sense of humility. It's been a learning experience for me as well, he replied. You've taught me about strength and resilience in ways I hadn't known before. By late afternoon, there was a noticeable change. The tension in her muscles had eased significantly, and her posture was relaxed. She moved with a lightness that had not been present in months. The rancher could see the relief in her eyes, the quiet joy of someone who had carried a burden for too long and was finally experiencing release. They worked together until the sun began to set, casting warm, golden light across the room. She leaned back in her chair, a soft smile on her face, and the rancher felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The hidden pain that had once seemed insurmountable was now acknowledged, eased, and in part healed. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice carrying emotion. "Not just for helping with the pain, but for showing me that it's okay to let someone help, that it's okay to trust." The rancher tipped his hat gently, feeling a rare warmth. "You've shown me as well," he said. "That strength isn't always in handling everything alone. It's in knowing when to accept care and trust someone." As he prepared to leave, he noticed the subtle ways in which she now moved. There was confidence in her step, ease in her gestures, and a quiet calm in her expression. He realized that even small relief mattered, that progress, even gradual, was meaningful. The hidden pain had not vanished entirely, but it had been acknowledged, understood, and lessened through patience, care, and trust. Driving back to his ranch, the rancher reflected on the journey. He thought about the trust she had placed in him, the courage it took to reveal something so personal, and the patience required to guide him. He understood that helping someone was not just about solving a problem. It was about presence, understanding, and shared effort. That evening, as he sat by the fire in his ranch house, he felt a sense of quiet fulfillment. He had learned that strength was not always in muscles or endurance, but in empathy, patience, and understanding. The journey with Mrs. Thompson had shown him the importance of listening, observing, and responding with care. It had revealed that even hidden pain could be acknowledged, eased, and transformed through trust and attention. He thought about the days ahead, about returning to continue their work if needed. He knew there would be challenges, but he felt ready. He understood now that the process of healing was gradual, filled with patience and attention, and that every small step mattered. In the days that followed, the rancher noticed changes not only in Mrs. Thompson, but also in himself. He approached his work on the ranch with a renewed sense of awareness, paying closer attention to detail, showing more patience with his animals, and appreciating the quiet lessons that life offered every day. The connection he had built with her had taught him that caring for others could also deepen one's understanding of life and strength. Mrs. Brown Thompson, too, carried a new sense of hope. The hidden pain that had dominated her life was no longer as heavy, and she felt empowered by the knowledge that she could trust someone and still remain strong. Their shared experience had created a bond built on respect, patience, and understanding, one that would remain even as life returned to its usual rhythm. One evening, as the rancher rode across his fields, he thought back to the day he first arrived at her house. He remembered the tension, the hidden pain, and the quiet strength that had drawn him in. Now he could see the transformation, the relief, the progress, and the deep connection that had grown between them. It was a reminder that even small acts of attention, care, and patience could have profound effects. He smiled softly, feeling gratitude for the experience. It had been more than helping someone with pain. It had been a lesson in trust, empathy, and the quiet strength of human connection. The hidden pain, once a burden, had taught him about resilience, patience, and the power of gentle care. As the sun set over the horizon, casting a warm glow across the ranch, he realized that life's most important lessons often came in subtle, unexpected ways. Helping someone uncover and ease hidden pain was not just about relief. It was about building trust, understanding, and respect. And in doing so, he had discovered a new dimension of strength, one that would guide him in every aspect of his life from that day forward. The rancher knew that challenges would continue for both himself and Mrs. Thompson. But he also knew that the bond they had formed, the lessons they had learned, and the progress they had made together would carry them forward. The hidden pain that had once seemed overwhelming had been met with patience, care, and empathy, and in that process both of them had been transformed. And so, as night fell and the stars appeared over the ranch, the rancher felt a quiet peace. He had been part of something meaningful, something beyond work or routine. He had witnessed courage, offered care, and discovered the strength that comes from trust and understanding. Life on the ranch would continue, but he would carry the lessons of these days with him always. Lessons about patience, empathy, resilience, and the hidden power of gentle care.